Hello everyone, I'm recording this video to help students who are starting the diploma now perhaps or even older students who have forgotten how to graph on a calculator functions. In this particular case we're talking about quadratics, and although I won't be able to answer every single question using the calculator or just write the answer down, I will be able to direct you on how to answer that sort of extensive 12-mark IB style question using your calculator. So let's begin by identifying the function that we have. And we have a quadratic, which is the 4x squared minus 120x plus 800. And what I'm going to do, the first thing, is just to either open a new document or go into the scratch pad. I'm going to open a new document so you kind of see that process as well. So my calculator is on, so I'm going to press on, and then instead of a scratch pad on the left, I'm going to use option number 1 on the documents. And what I want to do, I want to add a calculator. I want to add graph, the option 2. And that would provide me with f1 of x and then that blinking kind of vertical line, which means this is where my cursor is, and I'm going to start typing here the 4x squared. So let's start with 4x, and then the x squared, the squared part is just like on the left of 4, and then I have a minus 120x, and then finally plus 800. And once I press enter, the calculator should normally kind of graph my function. And I can see a little blue line over here, but not much of it. So perhaps you even end up seeing that you don't see any function there at all. So what would be my advice is to try to zoom out until you locate the graph of the function. And if you want to zoom out, because it might be somewhere off the window that you see there, then you have to go into the menu and then choose option 4 and then option 4 again to zoom out. And that will provide you with that magnifying glass but with a minus, which means it's just going to zoom out rather than a plus, which zooms in. So there we go, I already have my function. And if I go one more again, then I can see a little bit more of it. And now maybe I should do 1 or 2 more, but then if you overdo it, then you see what happens. You kind of start seeing your graph a little bit thin. So what I'm going to do at this stage, once I've located where my function is, I'm going to use a different function on the calculator, and I will try to restrict the domain of what I'm seeing. So I can see that my function here does not go into the negative for what I have in front of me. It will go eventually, but if I want to see what is actually happening on the left, then even if I plot from minus 10 until about, so that's 200, let's just put it until 50. So if I can locate it from minus 10 to 50, and then here it goes almost to minus 100, so I'm going to put it from minus 150, and then all the way up to the y-intercept. Now, looking at my function here, which is plus 800, it means that for x equals 0, it's going to cross the y-axis at 800. So I better go all the way up to 900. So let me show you how we do that. So menu, and then window zoom, and then onto the Windows settings. And I said I want for the x-axis to go from negative 10, so we have negative and then 10, and then we press tab to go into the next row. And I want the maximum to be up to 150. Feel free to kind of try different numbers and then adjust it later, it doesn't really matter. Then press tab, I want the x scale to remain as auto, and then the minimum value I said, let's go from minus, what was that, minus 150, let's say, and then all the way up to 900. And the reason that I said 900 is because I know that the y-intercept is going to be there. Now, there's another clue on that particular question that might help you. And if you look here on the right, you have been given a grid, right, that sort of gives you a bit of a clue of what you want to graph. So draw the graph of the quadratic on the diagram below, and I'm talking about the question D. So that should be a good indication that this should be the um, the boundaries for the x-axis and the y-axis of what I'm seeing, right? And I put from minus 150 here, it says minus 200, so I might as well just change it into minus 200. No, I'm going to leave it and I can change it later. It doesn't really matter. And this is what I see. And what I can see here is I see a lot of the x-axis, which is kind of like, empty. There's nothing there. So I don't need that much. So I can go back into the window zoom and back into the window settings and reduce this to 50 rather than 150. And sort of start, there you go. That's already a much nicer graph. And that's the one way of kind of like, seeing the graph. Don't assume that because it's not there or visible within the window, it doesn't exist at all. So there's many different ways you could do that. What I will do right now, I will do the basic kind of like, features of the graph. And I'm going to start with the zeros. There's a point here which is a 0, and the point here which is a 0. I'm going to find the vertex, and I'm also going to find the y-intercept. And if you're still not happy with what you see there, what you could do, you could press the middle button with a blue hand until you grab it. Now on my laptop software, it looks a little bit differently, and then you can adjust it so you can see exactly what you are happy to do or see. And then if you still want to adjust a few more things, like I want to see that area where the y-intercept is here, I can go and readjust the window that I'm seeing, or I can hover over the y-axis, and then I can, once I see the hand, I can press it and grab it, and then I can pull it down, so that gives me a better view of the y-intercept. So that's more or less it on how to adjust so you can see the graph that you want. Now, to finalize what you see in the graph, if I was about to be drawing the graph of the quadratic as per sub-question D, then because you've been given the boundaries from minus 200 to 900 and from, let's say, minus 10 to 40, then you should better go and do that. So the graph that you're drawing is accurate to what you see, consistent with a window you've been given. Okay, so let's go for the roots. All of the key points of the graph can be found through the option number 6, which is analyzing graph. And here you have 0, minimum, maximum, intersections, and so on. What we want the zeros. And then you get that dotted line for which you have to start from the left of the side of the 0. That's the 0 that I'm pointing it out. So if we start from the left and we press 1, that's going to be the lower bound. And now they ask me for the upper bound. So if I move to the right, it creates that sort of ribbon, right? And then it presents you with the actual answer. And if you don't like it to be there, you can grab it as well and move it to a position that you prefer. So that's going to be the one root. And then for the second root, back into menu, back into number 6, analyzing graph, back into 0, and then on the left, which is the lower bound, you can see on the bottom left corner, and then press it once and then drag it to the other side, and now you can see the other 0. And then again, you can grab that once the hand appears and drag it to where you want it to be, and this is it. I also want to calculate the vertex. Let me just move the function as well, because every time you see the little hand, you can press the middle button and kind of like drag and put it on the position that you like better. So let's put it somewhere here. That will work. So now my label is kind of like a bit more central. I can see it. And what else do I want? I want to find the vertex, which is a minimum point. Oh, that's an important part. Do not, once you hover over the graph, then that would highlight, you can see the graph become a little bit kind of like, like a brighter and thicker kind of line. Then if you go there and by mistake you grab it, right, and you move it, then you're actually changing the function. And the results you're going to get are going to be different. So we can cancel that by pressing Control and Escape to go back to where we were. And I have to check now that this is my function, right? 4x squared minus 120x plus 800, which is correct. So let's go ahead and find the minimum value. So menu, and then analyzing graph, and then find the minimum value, right? Minimum because I know that's minimum what I have there, and then it's the same sort of process with the left bound and a right bound, and once you create within the ribbon that will provide you uh, with the coordinates of the vertex. That's an important skill to have, especially if you want to write your function into a vertex form, like the question part B, right? Because once you find the coordinates of the vertex, then you will be able to write it in the vertex form. The h is going to be 15, and the k is going to be minus 100. And finally, I want to find the y-intercept. And to find the y-intercept, I'm going to use something else, another tool that's called graph tracing. So menu, you can go into the trace, which is the option number 5, and then graph trace. And that provides you with that little crosshair here that you can move left and right using the left and right, up and down buttons here, or the cursor, right? And every time I move position on the bottom right corner, you will see that the coordinates are changing. So now I'm in position 27,476. I can move it to the left with the name to kind of like, go as close to 0 as possible, but that can take a lot of time. Instead, what you can do, whilst in the graph tracing mode, you can press straight away the button 0. That will create a little box that says x is equal to 0, and when you hit enter, your graph is going to move and it's going to go right in the correct position. I mean, we knew already that it's going to be 0, 800, but I'm just showing you the skill in case you kind of like, need to do that for a function that it's not that obvious, so it's been given to you in a different form, or it might be any kind of function. Now, finally, sometimes you get a quadratic and they ask you to calculate the roots, and the roots, of course, is the zeros, so the roots that would be 10 and 20, but I just wanted to show you a different tool that does the same thing. So for that tool, I'm going to need a calculator. So what I will do, I will press Control and then Add Page, which is just right above highlighted with blue. That's why I'm pressing Control on the document. And I'm going to add a calculator because I'm going to use a different tool. And then there is, within the calculator, an algebraic tool that you can find under Menu, then number 3, Algebra, and then there's the numerical solve, systems of equations, and the polynomial tool. And I will go with the polynomial tool because the quadratic is polynomial, right? So find roots of polynomial, and you can choose between real and complex. We don't have to talk about it right now. Let's just go with find roots of polynomial. And here they're going to ask you what is the degree of the polynomial. You can do the same process for cubic or quartic and so on. In this case, we have a quadratic, and I'm looking for real roots. So once I press OK, the calculator will ask me to provide the values a2, a1, and a0. And if I match the equation that is here with the function that I have there, the coefficient of the x squared, which is the a2, that's the 4. So let's press 4 and then tab. A1 is going to be negative 120, so let's use the minus next to enter, and then 120, then press tab again, and then the constant term, or AO, that's going to be the 800. So let's put the 800, press tab, go all the way to OK, press enter, and then that provides you with a command. If you were about to be doing an IB question or an IB paper or during an examination, and this is the tool you used, then it would have been a very good idea to copy into your answer everything you see here in the calculator, which means I'm going to find the polynomial roots of that polynomial and I'm going to solve for x. And then if you hit enter again, that will provide you with the two roots that we saw before, that they are 10 and 20. Let's go back to see the x-intercept. That's the 10, 0 and 20, 0. And that's it. That's how you find the key points of a function.